Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here today on the first big snow at the end of December in 2020. I'm with my friend Dan Bailey, and we're here to just kind of talk about some stuff. We're in your neck of the woods, man. This is your barn. You've been working on this thing.
Yep.
Thank God, recently installed a heater.
Yeah.
It's working hard up there. But we want to take some time and to have a conversation. And Dan, thank you so much, man, for joining me today. Let's start a couple things. First of all, like as we're having this conversation, we're at the end of 2020. No one needs us to give them a recap on the year, right? It's been wild. No one saw it coming in terms of COVID-19 and the economic shutdown. Obviously, you throw in the middle of that an election, and we know politics can be super polarizing. And in the middle of that, also a lot of social issues and things happening between different communities and police and law enforcement and racial injustices, just a lot of stuff going on. And, in the middle of that, each individual has their life and the things they're walking through. What are some things this year, like, what have you learned in 2020? I know it hits each person different, but, like, what have been your biggest takeaways from 2020 going into 21?
God's still my rock. Like, when all else fails, that's where I need to turn to. That's what I need to be satisfied in. That's where I need to find my value in, my worth in. And knowing that on some level, like, everything's going to be okay. Somebody's got it worse than you do. Somebody's got it harder than you do. Somebody's got it a more difficult time than you do, no matter what you're going through. And honestly, I know we spoke on this a little bit before, but 2020, as crazy as it's been and as gnarly as it's been, and it has been for the entire world basically, 2020 has honestly been a breeze for me personally, even though I've had to make some big changes in my life, take some big risks that didn't make a lot of sense, or maybe don't make a lot of sense to the outside viewer, but stuff that I knew that God wanted me to do and knew that I needed to do the things that I know that he may be passionate about. 2019 was probably one of the worst years of my life personally. And so I don't know, I feel like that kind of teed me up or set me up for 2020 to be one of those people who, has the opportunity to not get too caught up in the negative, but like, hey, here's the positive, here's the things we need to focus on, here's how we get through this, because I just went through it a year ago, you know what I mean? So in my little circle of influence that I have, that's what I tried to focus on and do through 2020, and it's taught me some lessons for sure moving forward to 2021.
It's really interesting because you talk about how, from the outside, everybody sees the difficulty of 2020, but for you personally, you went through a lot of hardship in 2019.
Yeah.
At the time, probably having no idea the preparation that was happening, having no idea that, in a sense, it was almost setting you up for success in a season where there was going to be all these factors that you have no control over, but for you to have a certain level of peace or endurance through that.
100%. And I'm not sure which series it was, if it was the Becoming series or what, but when you pulled out, I can't remember if it was a verse in Corinthians, but anyway, it took the difference between things happening for a reason and things happening for a purpose, and what those actually mean. And the subtle difference there is huge, right? Yeah. Like, reason is just like, well, it's just an explanation,
right? And
there's nothing attached to it. It's just, well, these things just happen and that's it. Brush it off the table and you're just stuck with it. Purpose is there's action behind that, right? This situation sucks. This is the worst, whatever situation I've ever been in, but there's purpose behind it. So focus on that purpose. It was sometime in 2019. I called one of my mentors, a buddy of mine, and we were chatting, and I was kind of sharing with him about things, and I'm like, man, I'm reading more than I've ever read. I'm praying more than I'm pouring my heart out to God every night and every morning, like sometimes in tears, and I don't have an explanation for a lot of it, and I don't, And he's like, well, man, I got to say, sounds like you're in the right spot. He's like, sorry, but sounds like I don't think you should be moved from where you're at right now until you kind of get the revelation that you need. You might not have it yet, but keep on, brother. That was kind of the thing, patted me on the back, and here I was, you're kind of looking for a little bit of hey, feel sorry for me kind of thing. And he wasn't having it. He was just like, all right, what, you're praying, you're reaching out to God, you're doing this, you're doing that. You're doing the right thing. It's just, this is just the valley, and that's the way it is. This is how you learn. No different than working out in the gym. Like, how do you think you get strong? You're going to be sore. You're going to be tired. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun all the time. But that's how you grow. That's how you get better. That's how you progress.
Yeah. No, that's good. You know, one of the things about God is that he comforts us when we're disturbed, and he disturbs us when we're comfortable. Right? And sometimes, like, we find ourselves in a season where we're agitated, things have been disrupted, a lot of change, a lot of pain, whatever it is. And it's just, God has a way of knowing when we're going through something that's like a certain kind of suffering, that we're disturbed in a sense, that he comes and he brings comfort when we're wounded. But then other times where he kind of messes up some things or shakes some things up to help us to grow, you know, that we need to be disturbed in one way or another, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, relationally, physically. You know, you even think of the nature of CrossFit is like, we're going to keep switching it up on you.
Right.
So your body never fully adapts, you know, like, oh, what am I in for today? Right. Because that's how the world is, right? Like, I don't always know that I'm going to have to pick this thing up and carry it over here. I don't always know, you know, what I'm going to have to do to get through what I have. So there's that combination, you know, and it's like, God doesn't heap suffering on us because he's sinister, or he's not doing it because he likes to watch us squirm. It's the times where we're broken down that he comforts us. He brings his spirit to surround us. He brings the body of Christ, other believers, like people in your path, you know, throw an arm around you or to be present with you. And on the other side, sometimes he has somebody to say, hey, get back in the game. You're good. You're just tired.
Right.
You know, I tend to think of it like, imagine if, like, I was swimming the English Channel and you were in a boat, right? And you're alongside me, and I'm swimming, dude, and I'm getting tired, you know, and I'm like, I don't think I can do it. You know, depending on where I'm at, you're going to respond differently. You know, if you see me and you see me struggling, but you're like, no, he can do it. You know, there's waves and there's whatever, but you're like, hey, keep going, man. You got this. Like, you can do it.
Right.
If I start going under the water, and you're like, where'd he go? You know, he's gone for 30 seconds, you know, and I'm like, and you see me taking on water, you're going to snatch me out of that water. You're going to pull me in the boat and say, let's try it another day.
Right.
You know, and I think God has a way of doing that in our lives, like knowing sometimes it's hard for us to know the difference when we're in there swimming.
Yep.
But he has a way of knowing when we need someone to say, no, you're doing okay. Looks like you're in the right place. Keep stroking, keep going.
Right.
Or when he says, get in this boat, you know, catch your breath, you know.
And there were threads of that for sure. There were other people who were that. There were other pillars that were there. There were other things that were kind of like that hand pulling me into the boat in a little bit, like, hey, like, come on in here right now, like, just chill out, like, you know, you don't need to be doing this or that or thinking this way anymore about those things. So that totally resonates as well. It is important to point that out because there were those people too during that time, during 2019, for sure.
Yeah. One of my favorite verses is Luke 10:27. It's known as the Great Commandment. So it's love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I'll talk about sometimes a church like a 5-legged stool, and it's like that's how we're made up. Heart is emotional, soul is spiritual, mind is mental, strength is physical, neighbor is relational, right? So we're made up of those things. And when those things are strong and those things are growing, our lives feel stable. When they're not, if I have a broken emotion or a broken relationship or my body's broken down, sometimes it can affect everything else and we feel unstable.
Right.
You know? And so I just love the picture that we have of our fitness, our health physically, and how many times that's a picture of our spiritual health, right? A lot of the same concepts, like you are what you eat, right?
Right.
What I eat, if I eat a Cheeto, my body breaks it down, I am now a Cheeto. Like,
right.
It's me now. It's not a Cheeto anymore. It's me, right?
Yeah.
So whatever I choose to eat or drink, or again, I can sit and eat the right stuff. If I don't put it in action, then it doesn't produce what it was supposed to produce, right? So in the same way, I sit and read the Bible or worship or whatever, and I don't go take steps of faith, or I don't go put it in action, you know. Faith without works is dead.
Right.
So it's those, like, all those parallels. All right, so think about CrossFit, right? CrossFit has, is it the 9, how do they say it, 9 pillars of?
There's 10 general physical skills.
All right,
yeah,
10.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to guess them. I know I'm going to miss some.
I don't think I've got them all in the back
really?
of my head right now, yeah.
Between the two of us, we have to be able to do it.
We
If not, Kyle, you might need to go to Google on our behalf. All right, okay. So let me see what I can get.
Okay.
Speed.
Yes.
I can't miss the first. Is it speed? Is it something else?
Yeah, no, speed is
Okay.
correct. Like, well, your speed of movement. Yeah.
Speed has to be in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Speed. Endurance.
Okay.
Is that in there?
Yeah.
You don't look sure about it.
It does. I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't want to mess up. Camera's rolling, all right? So, like,
we can always edit
I'm on
this
the spot.
out.
I know.
We'll do a voiceover. Okay. Speed, endurance, accuracy.
Accuracy's in there.
Agility.
Yes.
Power.
Yes. I think so.
Well,
I just took the test,
it has
too.
To
like,
be
I should
because
know. Yeah,
if
it
you're,
is. Yeah. Well, power is like one of the biggest
you're
things, period, in CrossFit.
Yeah,
but anyway.
deadlifting.
Okay. We're there. What number is that? I put my fingers down.
5.
Okay. 5? Okay.
Balance.
No, balance isn't the word, I don't think.
It's not?
No.
Stability?
No, it's not the word either.
I thought balance was in there. Okay.
I try to tend to.
Flexibility?
Yeah.
Yes, that's in there.
That's in there.
Do you know any?
Strength.
Wouldn't that be power? Oh, that's probably the word.
Power's like, power brings a time component into it, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the amount of work you do is power output.
So what would
force
strength?
time distance over time is
Okay.
power output, right?
So then
strength is just the productive application of force.
Okay.
So by productive application, you mean, you're not technically that strong if you're doing a leg curl or a leg extension at 200 pounds. Like, it's impressive, but a productive application is a squat, a deadlift, because you're using it to move large loads, long distances quickly, basically.
Got it.
In my opinion, yeah.
Okay.
Or kind of by the book.
Is like explosiveness in there anywhere, or like what would?
See, like, I tend to group them in these different groups, and you are like, you're grabbing all over, so I'm speed, accuracy.
I'm concerned you cheated on the test. You just
speed, accuracy, coordination.
Coordination. That's
agility. Maybe agility is not one of them. Speed, accuracy, coordination. Oh.
You had the answers on your hand.
I should have wrote them down before. Strength, flexibility, cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina.
Do they break out
7?
endurance?
Huh?
So is it like
endurance.
muscle endurance and cardio endurance?
We're going to have to go to the tape for that.
Mental toughness? Yeah,
this is so embarrassing. I'm going to get my
ahead.
level 1 revoked for this.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need some help. I'm going to stand by. I think balance.
You got me all confused by
balance,
by jumping all over that. I don't think that's one of them.
We're going to Google. Got to go to the experts.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'm going to do some pull-ups here.
So we've got cardiorespiratory endurance, stamina, which we touched on, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance.
Yes!
And accuracy was the last one. Accuracy is the only one we didn't get.
Let the record show balance.
Balance is in there. I'm ashamed.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's pick out of all of those.
Yeah.
What's your favorite one? And then let's talk about why it's your favorite in terms of fitness, and then let's talk about it in terms of life.
Man, that's tough. I probably have to say, in terms of life too.
Well, forget that. Just
okay, just for fitness. I mean, probably speed. Like, I've always wanted to be fast. Those were Carl Lewis, Michael Johnson, like Mike Powell, Usain Bolt. Like, those were the guys that I wanted to be like in track and field. And so that would be an easy pick for me. Like, track and field was my game back in the day, and those were the guys that I really looked after, and that's the guys that I tried to, like, replicate what they did. So being fast, speed, yeah.
All right. So, which I do actually, I remember one of the games, dude, you straight killed it on speed. It was that one. It was just like straight down the field, and then
a couple zigzags and then some hurdles. I think
it was over.
Yeah.
You lit up, dude, when you knew that one was coming.
Oh, fired up! Like, those are points that I gotta get.
It's on,
and these are mine. Like, don't drop the ball here. Yeah, this needs to happen.
All right, so you think speed? Let's think about that in life. Like, what have you learned about speed of life? What have you learned about that concept related to the real world?
Yeah, actually, I could tie in one of your most recent lessons to it a little bit, or one of your most recent sermons. So you talked about how, how much time productive time we actually have. First 10 years of your life are kind of worthless.
Right.
Last 10 years of your life are a little bit worthless. So there's 20 years that are just kind of gone, not worthless, but you get the point. So realizing the urgency to be disciplined, to have a focus, to have goals, to work towards them every day. That's still quickly, even if you take it out in forms of years, like I'm going to get this degree in 3 years instead of 4 because I'm going to work really hard in X, Y, and Z. Like, it's awesome. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to accomplish this task or learn this or get better at public speaking or play the guitar or whatever it might be. Getting those things done quickly is important because of the time it takes to learn different things and the focus that it takes to do that stuff. And the faster you can learn skills, the faster that you can pass them on to somebody else, that you can teach somebody else and improve the quality of life of somebody else. So how's that as an answer?
No,
I
that's
guess?
really
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I think that's really good. I think when you think about understanding the task at hand and going, what gear am I going to shift in for this?
Yeah.
Right. So even part of CrossFit's it's 3 or 4 days.
4.
Like the
yeah,
games?
yeah, 4.
So you have to know on Tuesday what you're being asked to do and how that might relate to Friday, and in a sense, pace yourself at times, or knowing, hey, this is my strength, and so I can get points here, so I'm going to just put my head down and I'm going to sell out. I'm
Right.
going as hard as I can possibly go.
Right.
But you also realize that it's part of a bigger picture, and so I can't just sell out 100% pedal to the metal every single thing I do. I have to know what, strategically, how does this fit in with who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish and
Sure.
all those type things, right? So I think that's a big part of life. You look and you go, in this season, what's the thing I just need to throw all my weight into? I need to go all in completely. And then what things do I need to pace myself? I need to pick a different pace. I need to, and it can have something to do with your strengths. It can have something to do with the season, the other responsibilities that you have, the return on investment you're going to get, right?
Right.
There might be certain areas you're like, I could give everything I have, but I'm not going to finish in the top 10 because it's not the best use of me. I have to think, where am I going to really, really shift, into fifth gear?
Right.
And so I think that is huge application in life, as it relates to my responsibilities, what God's called me to do, my family, what I really owe them in responsibility and want to take seriously, and
Right.
all those type things. So I think, looking at rhythms in life and knowing even season by season, this last year for us from an organizational standpoint felt like a lot of pressure because we'd worked hard over the last 9 years to establish a church and an organization, a community, with some consistent rhythms. We meet every weekend in person. We're hugging each other. We're seeing each other eyeball to eyeball. We're worshiping God in one place at one time. And we had options for people who were traveling or
Right.
who lived somewhere else, but
Right.
that was so much of our culture. And then in a blink of an eye, couldn't do it.
Right.
And so we're the feelings that everything's threatened. What's going to happen to this? Are people going to stop being a part of this community? Are they going to tune out forever? Are they, does it still provide a value for them? And all of those things. So we had a certain pace we had to run at in order to make sure that we could serve the people that God's called us to serve and to do the job that he's given us to do.
Right.
But at the same time, there was so much in terms of emotionally that it felt like we weren't doing enough, or we couldn't do enough, or all the uncertainty. Is this actually helping people? Is this actually producing a result? Or
Right.
people still a part of this? Because you're not seeing them every day. It's all of that. So within that, I'm like, I've got to find a healthy rhythm, because everything inside of me emotionally was like, sprint,
Right.
right
Now.
but it's
yeah.
like, I can only do that for, how long can you sprint
Right.
It's but 20 seconds, maybe,
Right.
right? Not very long can
No.
you. So it's like, I can't keep this pace. At a certain place, I have to have some faith. I've got to be able to rest. I got to be able to shift gears. I've got to be able to detach my mind from this over here and come over here and do this. And
I can't imagine some of the conversations you guys had, like right when all of it, you knew you had to shut down, knew you couldn't do service, knew you couldn't, like with your leadership team, I'm sure. From the outside view, you handled it flawlessly. Like, it was great, you know. It was like, hi, we got service online, and we're going to do this, and da-da-da-da, and it's like, oh, awesome. You know what I mean? At least I've still got this. I can still show up somehow, you know, to church and get fed a little bit. So that was great.
It's that surge capacity. It's like the building's on fire, right?
Right.
And when it's on fire, you're like, everybody pulls together, you know?
Yeah.
And, but you're trying to anticipate. That's a big part of life, and leadership is anticipating what's coming. And none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly what's coming, but you're trying to figure out, like, okay, this is how everyone's responding in March. It's how everyone's responding in April. What is the end of this thing, and what's it going to be like in August? What's it going to be like in September? You know, or is it? And again, at the end of the day, our job is to build the body of Christ and to serve our church.
Right.
You know, it's not to just survive as an organization.
Right.
It's to serve people.
Right.
And so we're like, can we do that? Like, how do we do it most effectively right now?
Yeah.
And really trying to understand what people are going through. And that's why, like, right out of the gate, we were like hearing from people like, what's up? Oh, my job's done.
Yeah.
You know, couples, both of them lost their jobs. And so they're like, we don't know how we're going to, so we just tried to help pay bills.
Right.
As much as we could with people there, or just keep giving messages or whatever it might be. So, but I think speed, that's a great way to think about, like, what are those things? When is it time to sprint? And when is it time to not sprint? You know, when is it time to scale it back a little bit, or even stop for a minute?
Take some pause.
Yeah, and I think just like the great application from the games is, before you get in, you go, what are we doing?
Right.
What is the whole thing I'm doing here? Because after this sprint, what do I have to do? A handstand walk, or am I going to climb a rope 15 times?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you're going.
There was actually an event in 2012 where that was like the case, right? It was really a really well set up event, and in hindsight, I would have done it differently, but it was basically a 300-meter shuttle at the opening part of it, which I think was worth 50 points. So 50 down and back, 100 down and back. Timed event, everything, and then you had a 1-minute reset into, I think it was like 2 or 3 rope climbs to 15 to 20 feet, somewhere in there. It might have been like 18, might have been in the middle. And then like pushing a football sled, like with the body on it, like push it, drive it like 10 yards until and it was so many rounds of that till you drove it all the way across the field, or like 20 yards, because I think there was about 5 rounds. And in my head, I'm like, all right, like, let's get a good average here. Like, I know that I can obliterate everyone on this sprint, but I'm going to be on my back. When they say 3, 2, 1, go on the next workout, I'm going to be laying there for 2 minutes before I even want to climb that rope. And so I ran hard, but I kind of took it all as one event. And so, like, I adjusted my speed. I adjusted my pace. I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do. I'm going to run a little bit slower, and I'll still finish well. Maybe I'll win, maybe I won't. I know I'm going to win my heat, but we'll see how it shakes out. And so I ended up taking, like, 4th or 5th in the sprint, and then just absolutely bombed the workout anyway, like, did horrible at it. And it was one of those things, was like, man, I should have just, like, taken a 1st and a last, not like a 4th and a last. But for sure, those things do happen at the games, absolutely. You got to know everything you're doing. It's like, okay, you're going to sprint. And then it's like, okay, that adjusts how you attack something. Yeah.
And you learn from that, right? So next time you had that type of thing, did that change the way you strategized in the future?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's like, you got to get points where you can get points. Like, you know you're great at this, then you need to go be great at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go be great at it, drop the hammer, and then we'll take care of the rest when we get there. You know what I mean?
All right. So of the 10 CrossFit elements, what do they call it? I want to make sure I get the language.
General physical skills.
General physical skills.
Yeah.
Your favorite is speed. What is your least favorite?
You got me thinking. Don't have a lot of cardiorespiratory endurance.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not been my my thing.
Okay.
I'm not super well at that. Like, you catch me in like Murph, or a longer workout that's 45 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour long. I don't look pretty. There's snot coming out of my nose. I'm drooling everywhere. You know, I've got a blank look in my eye. I don't respond when people ask me questions. I wasn't built for that. I was not purpose-built to go the distance in some of those events. But again, that's part of what makes them fun. I don't enjoy training for it, like the distance side of it. I ran one season across country when I was at OU. It was one of the most miserable seasons. I mean, it was fun, but like, it's one of those things. It's like, you're not made for this. It was good for me to learn how to do it. And it's a fun challenge again. Yeah, that's probably my least favorite.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that in the real world. All right. So cardio endurance. All right. How would you say that plays into mentality or experience in the real world?
The ability of the body to gather, process, and deliver oxygen is what cardiorespiratory endurance is. Man. So it's kind of the ability, a little bit of what we mentioned before, I guess. Maybe the ability to pace yourself a little bit. Maybe finding the ability to how to keep yourself sustained through a longer process. Something that's not going to be. I mean, take 2020 for example. Stuff went down in March, and we're still right in the thick of it. Of all sorts of different things that you mentioned at the opener here. So, figuring out how you can continue to sustain yourself through something like that, an arduous process, I think is a great real world kind of application.
Yeah, one of the things you said a moment ago is you're like, I'm not really built for that, right?
Yeah.
So there are certain areas of your strengths that you were always fast, right? You were fast. I'm sure you were fast as a little kid, and then you were like a state. Were you like a state finalist?
I was state champ in the 55, and then second in the state in the quarter mile my senior year.
Wow,
yeah,
that's cool.
Only because Ted Ginn didn't run it that year. Yeah,
he's kind of quick.
He's kind of fast. That's world class.
Got a nice stride.
World class speed versus college speed. Yeah,
but still, I mean, so that was the natural part, right? So you're built for that.
Yeah.
The other side going, I'm not as built for this, and then the understanding those things. I think there are things in life that some of us are built for. Again, beyond just the physical stuff. I think there are certain situations that people are more naturally built for,
right? And
others that you aren't as much. And I think understanding what those things are, and then not quitting on them. Like you said, you're like, you don't go, I don't do that because I'm not good at it. You go, no, I need to do it because I'm not good at it. But you also, again, if you're like Paul says, he goes, I compete for a prize. In essence, like I'm not just taking up oxygen. I want to make my life count.
Right.
So if you're at the games and you're competing, you're going, hey, I know I'm probably not going to win this, but I got to decide how am I going to respond to it. And, you think about even in Hebrews 12 where it says, run with endurance the race marked before you. And the idea that some seasons you do just, I'm going to finish this. It's not necessarily about finishing first every time, like, because you're like, this is one that other people are more built for than I am, but I'm gonna finish it. Right. It's interesting. A little bit about my story with my sons. Mm-hmm. The reality is, I have two sons on the autism spectrum, and I love them with all my heart. But my natural tendency, like my natural wiring, is I struggle with how to father them well. It doesn't come naturally to me. Yeah. My daughter she's kind of on the other end of the spectrum in terms of she picks things up quickly, all those type things, and sometimes she and my wife butt heads a lot. My daughter and I really don't. I know some of that's father-daughter stuff, but like I love to throw questions out to her, watch her connect the dots. I like to challenge her. I don't make life easy for her. I challenge her, but it's just, to me, it's very natural and instinctive. Yeah. Parenting her. Parenting my sons, I feel like my instincts are wrong a lot. Right. You know what I mean? My wife's instincts are amazing with my sons. Like in fact, when they started in school, we went in and we're asking the teachers things we can do, and the stuff they were telling us to do, my wife was already doing just out of instinct.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, she was like you sprinting. Like it was just, she just knew how to do it. Right. And she was good at it. And I was doing stuff wrong on accident, but it didn't come as naturally to me, So the feeling is like I feel deficient a lot of times within that space, but I understand like I'm going to finish this race. Yeah. And I might not be as fast as my wife. I might not be as naturally gifted as somebody else. You know, I mean, there's obviously like amazing people. I know a lot of them who literally went to college, got a degree, and to help people with special needs. That's their passion, and they're super good at it. I didn't go to school for that.
Right.
That's not necessarily my passion.
Right.
But that's my responsibility.
Right.
And within my responsibility, I'm like, this is the race I have to run that I've been given to run, and I gladly run it, although it's not easy.
Right.
But I take the joy in it, but I understand I'm not going to be as fast as everybody else. My goal isn't to win it. My goal is to finish it and to finish as good as I can. So you kind of temper your expectations within that, not beating yourself up, feeling shame. I should be good at this. No, I'm not going to be good at everything. But when it's my responsibility and this is what's put in front of me, I'm going to give it I'm going to give what I can in Murph, you know, whether I love it or not.
I'm totally stealing that. It's not my passion, but it is my responsibility. Wow. That's great. I like that a lot.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that hits home for a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of people could use that, hear that. That's great. I love that.
I know a big part of your life, man, is your relationship with God.
Yep.
You know, your faith. Let's shift and talk about some of those things a little bit. Maybe what are some things, whether it's theologically or things within the scriptures or whatever it might be, questions, things you'd like to talk about?
Man, lately, in a lot of the conversations that I've had over the past couple of years, a lot of it's about apologetics, so like defending your faith. And I'm not an expert in it, but it fascinates me.
Yeah.
Like we were chatting before, my dad's he was a mechanical engineer for 35 years, so heavily into physics, science. Like he, subscribed to Discovery Magazine, Popular Science. Those things were always laying around the house. And so there's always the crazy topics of creation of the universe, what's out there, like time, space, like all these different things. And so relating what I know theologically from the Bible to what all these other things, these, scientific things that come out, has always been incredibly interesting for me. And so, I find it fascinating talking to people who maybe agnostic people or maybe atheistic people who say there is no God or say that there's something out there, but I'm not sure what it is. And I love having those conversations about, I'm not even going to try to tell you that the Christian God is the God, but can you at least walk down this road with me with the possibility that everything we know from what I read in those magazines and all these different things, that something outside of space, outside of time, would have had to have existed forever, has a knowledge base way beyond the capacity of our own, put the universe into motion, the universe as we know it, into motion. And a lot of things that I've read in scientific literature kind of back that up. And so a lot of that stuff just fascinates me to talk about those things. Now, what I call that thing is God and the Christian God and, everything that comes with it with the Bible. Lines up for that for me. So in recent years, that's been something that I just really enjoyed talking about, reading about, listening to podcasts about, and love hearing other people's perspectives on. I actually just had a great conversation with a guy when I was out in Kauai doing a charity walk about the same thing, and it was just awesome. Like, it was a fantastic conversation, not mean-spirited, not anything like that. Mm-hmm. And there's so many of those conversations that I think happen all the time that people don't realize are just good combos. We shake hands after, and there's no animosity or anger towards either person from it. But that stuff's kind of been something I've been glued to and reading about for a while now.
Yeah. So I think one of the bad things that's happened sometimes in church is that we discourage people from questioning things.
Yeah.
Right? So we would sometimes label it as doubt.
Yeah.
Which is not right, actually. If you look at Jesus, a huge component of his life and ministry was question asking. He asked tons of questions. He returned questions with questions. That was he encouraged people to think that way. Even look at the nature of the way that the Bible's written, New Testament, even Jesus teaching specifically. It's not recipes. It's not like a half cup of this and 3/8 of a cup of that. There's so much of it that he leaves room for interpretation.
Right.
That great, genuine, smart people for thousands of years now have tried to figure out exactly what he meant by this and exactly what he meant by that. Some of it's cut and dry, but there's so much in there that requires seeking.
Right.
You know, and that, again, that's a theme in the both Old Testament and New Testament is seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open. You know, in the Old Testament, you'll find me when you seek me with all your heart.
Right.
Hebrews 11, he rewards those who diligently seek him. So if you wanted to just take all the mystery out of it and just put it right there and have it be super cut and dry, he could have done that, but he created this quest and this journey and the seeking.
Right.
And so I think we have to be comfortable with that. I think we have to be okay with the fact that none of us have perfect theology. You know, there's not one of us that's going to get to heaven like, see, I was right about everything. Right. He's going to be like,
right.
Oh, I really thought I was right about that. I wasn't. You know?
Yeah.
So I think having the humility to know that none of us are gurus, none of us have all the answers, but we're on a quest together, and you can really bond over those conversations. You know, about here's how I see it, here's what I think, here's what I've experienced.
Right.
So I'll say this, like and this is just part of my journey, and I feel the same way you do about a lot of this stuff. But like, when you think about how God has wired us, right? And we've talked about this before. Head brains, heart brain, gut brain, right?
Yeah.
You literally have neurons. You know, when a baby's forming, a fetus, the stomach forms before anything because it feeds the baby.
Right.
And so the neurons that end up in your head, which are like 100, I think it's like 100 billion or whatever, it's a ton, end up in your head, start in your stomach.
Right.
Right. The neurons then you have neurons in your heart, in your stomach, and your head. So you have degrees of intelligence in those spaces. When you think of them in terms of what that means, well, our head is obviously facts, analytics, Microsoft Excel, right? And like you said, going science, math, this stuff, I can prove it.
Right.
It's provable.
Yeah.
All right. And there's lots of that. I think we encourage that. Like, let's get into the science. Let's look at this. Right. Okay, the stuff Jesus said, did he even say that? Where, you know?
Right.
So when the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, that was a huge deal because you're like, okay, here's more data, more information that we can, that brings proof to what we know. So you can go totally down that road, and there's a lot of fun stuff down that road.
Yeah.
There's the heart, right? The heart is another thing. I mean, some people are very much heart people.
Yeah.
Values, things you're passionate about. Things that really matter to you. And although those are harder to prove, there's certain things you're like, I just feel this way in my heart. I've got something that really matters. And I think then there's the gut, which is intuition. You see it a lot with entrepreneurs. Like, go with my gut, man. I don't know. Facts say this. I just feel it.
Right.
I'm going to do it. And those are all three valid things. Obviously, the most provable is 2 + 2 = 4. In the head brain, I can always do that. It's hard to prove a heart. It's hard to prove a gut.
Right.
But I think that's part of what we have to embrace in our humanity is humility, which is I'm not going to be able to prove everything.
No. Yeah.
And I do think some people, all the friends and family you have, think of like some of them are very head brain. It's just like they're gifted that way. They can digest information. They can codify. It's incredible. But you have to understand when you have that gift, you also have a liability because the gift is that you're smart. The liability is that you can go down all these rabbit trails and get lost and totally deny things that are very real in your heart or very real in the gut and go, I don't care about the gut. That's too touchy-feely. The heart, I don't give a rip about that.
Right.
Show me the facts. Well, that's foolish because those other things are real. They may not be as provable, but they are real. And we know even within science, there are things that you can't even see under a microscope. Right. So, I mean, we have to understand that if you're really, really smart, I'm not saying don't be smart. I'm saying be smart, but be even smarter than your head brain, which is to understand that there's these other elements that you may not be near as comfortable with.
Yeah.
But you would be foolish to just deny.
Right.
You got to embrace all of it and understand your strength. So, yes, go down I encourage people, go down that way. But I do think that the enemy oftentimes takes people who are very smart and he takes them down all the side roads of intellect.
Right.
They become even arrogant, prideful because you start to think you know everything.
Yeah.
And if you can't prove it to me, then I'm not going to believe it, which is crazy to even say.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things you can't prove that are true.
Right.
How can I prove that I love my wife?
Right.
How can I prove how much I love my kids?
Yeah.
How can I prove, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
a lot of it is circumstantial evidence. And but I also think that there are things that God has created that in our humanity, as much as we know we're human and we know we're finite and we know we have an end date,
right,
we still can get a little cocky around thinking we can know more than we can.
Oh, 100%.
So I think he just embeds that humility that should be there,
right,
that for me to go, well, there's some things that's just going to be beyond my intellect.
Right.
You got to embrace it. Some people never do. Some
right.
people, they're just like, they get there, and I think it saddens me because I think it's a certain kind of foolishness that we're all prone to. You see with people with their heart, like some heart people, they can get really wounded in their heart. I mean, I've seen people who literally deny facts, shut everything down because they're such a heart-brain person.
Oh, 100%.
Their heart got wounded.
Yep.
And they just put up walls in a relationship. They don't care what the facts say. They just go in this other zone because their heart got hurt.
Yep.
Again, people in gut, they don't even pay attention to the other things. So it's all in play. And I think knowing yourself and knowing where is your tendency, where's your comfort zone? Is it head, heart, or gut? And then having the discipline to introduce the other ones and to realize those are real too. Even though I may not be as familiar, I may not feel as confident in those, they're real. And unless you have all three going, you don't have the whole picture.
Right. No, that's great. I was just thinking, like, sometimes even when I share, you're going to talk about the Bible or talk about Jesus or those kind of things, sharing even your faith with just trying to use intellect, like just trying to use the facts about the Bible, and that you're not going to sway somebody by giving the 2+2 version of the gospel. Like, that's not, because that's not what it's all about. Just like you said, like there's that heart and there's that gut component, and I think it can be easily to get lost in the weeds in the same way. Like that kind of came to mind while you were talking about that. Yeah, that stuff fascinates me. Even that sermon you did on those things fascinates me. I'm like, oh, there's more science stuff I can look up now, from that. But
well, Shayla and I, we're going to co-teach a series in February of 21. And my wife is really into science. Like, she loves science.
Yeah.
So she's always coming to me with this scientific principle or some animal, some rodent that, God has made that somehow they excrete some hormone from their brain that connects with their blood and makes antifreeze, and they can die for 4 months and then they come back. I'm not even kidding. Like, and she's always coming to me with these articles and stuff, and she's just fascinated by it. And every time she does, I go, wow, it shows me a little bit of the character of God. It shows me a little bit of the design that God has designed the world. So to me, I go, man, why did he do that?
Right.
That's
I know.
different,
And
my wife and I took it. We did a safari in Africa, actually South Africa, a few years ago. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at these animals, and I'm to be honest, I'm not really a big animal guy myself. Like, everyone in my family wants a dog except me. I'm holding out. No offense to dogs. I know. To me, I'm like, I have to clean up after my kids. I don't need But anyways, but I'm sitting there and I'm looking, and the tour guide was giving us all this incredible information about these animals and, their instincts and what they do. And I'm just like, wow, like there's so much of that. And I kept thinking, like, I wonder why God did that,
Right.
Even that exploration, you see a little bit.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody makes something,
right,
they're telling you something about themselves.
Right. Yeah. And even the inconsistencies, there's few and far between. And again, I'm not as read up as probably some physics major, like somebody's going to, watching Back to the Future when you're a kid, time travel, like all those crazy things, right? But they're like, legit is proof that time is malleable, right? Like, they've done it with atomic clocks where if you move faster, the faster you move, time slows down for you compared to everybody else. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, not having the answers for that, I think, is kind of cool. Like, I think that more exploration and interest into those things is really cool. And the fact that a lot of physics in the physical world doesn't line up how the math is supposed to on the finite world, the very tiny world. Like, the physics of things and equations, they don't make sense. Like, they're supposed to be reconcilable, and they're not. And like, I love that. I love the inconsistency there, and the fact that there's something that we don't understand or, need to explore. And I'm not like just trying to throw God in the middle of all that and be like, well, that's the answer because it's God. Like, that's a weak answer. But rooting those things out, I'm just kind of fascinated by. And like you said, like, why did God do that? Why is this way when everything else around us tells us it should be X, but it's not. It's just not. And we don't know why. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's fascinating to me. And the other thing, like we could take it to a whole nother level, I guess, obviously the thing that's interesting to me in society and the thing that's happening is kind of the removal, I guess, a little bit of God and values and some of those things from a lot of sectors that I grew up with, like, and how it's happened in my generation. So when I like to talk to people about at least accept the possibility that there is a God, well, what comes with that is, in my view, is there's a set of moral standards and things that are God. These are perfect. This is the best it can ever be. That is God, right? Behaviors, whatever, things for life, the way you should treat people, X, Y, Z. And why the removal of those things is so dangerous, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Raising kids, I haven't been in a school in a while, but I grew up saying the Pledge of Allegiance like every day. And I'm not trying to get political, but saying one nation under God meant something to me growing up. You know what I mean? And like that does mean something. Like that term under God, like I'm always going to be under this. I'm striving for this perfection, but I'm always going to be under it because this is the standard. Like God is my standard. And taking that away, like removing those things from society and saying there isn't that doesn't exist, mm-hmm. That's a dangerous path, I think, to go down, because you lose focus, you lose track of like what's good, what's not, what's right, what's wrong. Like to say that those lines are just, there is no absolute truth for anything is a very dangerous thing, I think, to accept and start to live. Not necessarily something that's not worth pursuing and reading more about and understanding in all of it, but that's something that always interests me too, or just kind of another, I guess, thing that I've observed and why it's been so interesting to me for people to understand, even if they're not, full bore on, Christianity or ready to accept Christ. It's like, well, can we at least get to this point? Can we agree on this part, and then we can talk about this over here? You know what I mean? And that one point, that beginning point, kind of meeting people where they're at with a lot of their beliefs is like critically important to me. The more and more I've seen it slowly get eroded and removed from a lot of the institutions that I've been a part of. Yeah.
I think when it comes to the culture and how they respond to religion, or they respond to God or Christianity or whatever that might be, at least the way I see it, or at least my perception of that whole issue is, it's, you think, first of all, very small percentage of people are actually atheists. So it's like 2 or 3%. I mean, depending on the stats you look at, can be even lower, 1 to 2. But it's a very, very, very small percentage of people who just say there is no God. And I think the reason for that is because regardless of what you believe about a higher power or a being, it takes just a little bit of critical thinking, right? You go, where did all this come from? Oh, it was a big bang. Okay, well, where did the speck come from? Something had to have always been there. You just keep playing it backwards.
The eventually, mover.
What was there? Right. Something was there.
Right.
And I think for people that are just like hardcore, there is no God. It's usually, if they're to be totally honest, you dig deeper, there is a wound in there somewhere. Like for some reason, something happens so unjust, they just can't believe in that.
Right.
And, but all that to say, if we're going to say 98%, 97% of the world thinks that there probably is a God, but then there's religion, which is man-made, so to speak, like in a sense. You know, we all, every religion, whether it's Islam or Christianity or Judaism or whatever it might be, says there's an interaction between God and man, and this is what we believe from that.
Right.
I think culture sometimes, rightly, is skeptical, because I think when you look in human religions, even Christianity, which I'm a part of that tribe, but within that you've seen some serious distortions, hypocrisy, twisting, even abuses, right? I mean, there's bigotry that's come out of churches. People that said, slave owners were
reading the
scriptures as
just
justification for it's gross.
Right. And there's a certain kind of perversion around that people have an allergic reaction to. And they go, well, we're going to pull it out of this because we don't want to, we don't want to indoctrinate kids. We don't want children being exploited, in the school, or we don't want. And so they're really not rejecting God. I think most of them aren't rejecting God. They're rejecting the expression of God that's come many times from, I think, Christians that really didn't embody the body of Christ. Because if you really understand who God is through Jesus, it's irresistible.
Right.
I mean, it's the most amazing sacrificial love. You just, if you really experience, I mean, you can't resist it.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful thing that's out there.
Yeah.
It really is. It's incredible. I mean, you even look at, so Jesus, Matthew 5-7, he does the Sermon on the Mount. And on the Sermon on the Mount, he says some stuff. It's kind of hardcore. Like, one of them, he's like, hey, you've heard the law that says if you shouldn't commit adultery.
Right.
He's like, man, I say, if you look at a woman lustfully, it's like you've committed adultery with her, right? That's demoralizing because, dude, I love my wife, but dude, who has not looked at a woman lustfully? You're like, okay, I suck.
100%.
The next one,
I've had a buddy ask me, like, I don't know, we're on some kind of topic about that. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm not even married. I've already committed adultery.
Right, 100%.
Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, that's the standard. Like, that's God's standard,
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Right? Then the next, he says, hey, you've heard the thing that says don't commit murder. If you hate someone in your heart, or you call him a fool, or he goes right down.
Forgive him, like
it's like you killed him. It's
right.
just as bad. You're guilty of murder. It's like that's demoralizing. We've all done that.
Yeah.
So if you're not careful, right, you read those type of things, and it leads to more bondage, and then you got everybody walking around feeling shame and guilt.
Right.
What's Jesus really doing there? He is setting the bar so high that no one can do it.
Right.
And then what he's doing is setting up the most beautiful act of love, which is I'm going to scale this bar, and I'm dying not just for you but as you. And then I'm going to have you more righteous than that. In fact, he says, unless you're more righteous than the Pharisees. These people who are so legalistic.
Right.
They were as humanly, as much as a human can be. And he goes, you got to be better than that. So he goes through that process, goes through that pain, and brings us with him in a way that is the most beautiful act. When culture isn't rejecting that.
Right.
They reject the bonds and the bondage that we put on people. They reject what they see in Christians that can win an argument but don't actually love them.
Right.
And Jesus did too. Jesus said to the disciples, you put all this heavy stuff on people and you don't even lift a finger to help them carry it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he said. I mean, he went hard
right.
on these Pharisees who were really, in terms of their purity, they were probably more well-behaved than you and I.
Right.
And he went at them, and he was like, you set this standard so high, but you don't help anybody. Jesus put the standard even higher than they did, but he sacrificed his life and laid it down.
Right.
Does our country, do the people in my city and our community, is that what they feel from the Christians? I think that's what we need to focus on. And I think if we do that more and more, and you and I aren't so prideful to think we could just do it all by ourselves.
Right.
Or that it's going to just happen in 2021. But like when the body of Christ is activated in that way, it really, you put your guard down.
Yeah.
You stop fighting for, I think what a lot of people are worried is, we get up and say scriptures in school, or we,
right.
this and
right.
that,
Yeah.
and then we go, we're just going to make more Pharisees.
Right.
And I understand that concern. Of course, for me, I want my kids to say one nation under God. I want my kids to understand if you pull God out of anything,
problems.
You're
setting yourself up
game
for
over.
Yeah.
It is just the beginning of the end.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, to go, I can understand some of those concerns, right? I can understand that if you grew up and you were homosexual, you know, you had same-sex attraction or whatever, and you went to church and they treated you like garbage.
Yeah,
they
basically just started throwing stones.
They started throwing stones.
Yeah,
and they felt self-righteous in the process.
Right.
Instead of actually finding out, who are you?
Right.
What's your story?
Right.
And you know what? I'm gonna love you whatever you do.
Right.
Now, I may have a difference of opinion on what I think you should do.
Right.
I may interpret the Bible in a way that I think that it's not right.
Yeah.
But I love you. I'm here for you. I'm not quitting on you. Our relationship is not at stake.
Right.
I'm not booting you out.
One of a guy that I have one of the best conversations with every time I talk to him. We probably maybe talk like once a month. Same kind of scenario. He's put off from the church for that reason. And you know, we'll walk through things, talk through things, and like, I'm like, do you understand that? Like, I mean, exactly what you just said. It's the greatest thing. We can have this disagreement, but that's never going to stop me from being your friend. Like, ever. Like, not even close. You know what I mean? And like, where you find, you know, these behaviors, these things that biblically says you should avoid, it's like, dude, I'm in the boat with you. You're just not reading down far enough on the paragraph.
Right.
Like
I'm all over
everybody's got some focus on this thing over here, and it's like you're not putting your eyeballs on the other thing in your life, like the things we just talked about: adultery, lust, you name it, anger, rage, all those things. It's like, dude, we're all. I'm sitting there right next to you. Like, we're not. It's not like you're in the boat and I'm walking on the water. Like, that's not how this works. You know what I mean? And driving that home to people, like, it's crazy, the perception. Like you said, like, so many people have that perception of Christians looking down their nose at people, and
that's what they're fighting. That's when, if they're trying to pull the pledge out of the school, they're not deep down. They may or may not know what their battle is. But their battle is with the legalistic Christian that doesn't show grace or love. Right. That's who they're really fighting. Right. You know. Now, I don't agree with. I think we should have all those things. You know, I want my kids to have it. I want our culture to repent. I want our, and I want to repent. You know, I need to.
I'm part of that.
I'm a part of it. Right. I'm a part of the problem. Right. All that.
That's one of the things I try to drive home to everybody when I talk about going to church. And, you know, if I invite somebody to church, and like, I just don't know if it's for me. I don't know if, like, I'd probably burn alive. You know, they joke when they walk in. I'm like, dude, I'm in there just to raise my hand and be like, hey, everybody. Like, giant mess over here. Yeah. Like, I got so many things messed up in my life, the way I think, sometimes the way I act, and like, I'm here to make it better. Like, that's why I want to be here. But same thing, like, I'm in the boat with you. Like, that's why I go. You know what I mean?
I mean, you look at the things, like, everything that Jesus really came to produce, it just breaks down walls. Yeah. Dude, we had you know, we did the foster teen gift card thing, right?
So cool.
Okay, so we did that last year, dude. One of the most amazing things I've ever seen happen in church. We come out, we're trying to get the 775 foster teens in our county. We're trying to get them a gift for Christmas, right? And a handwritten card, and just show up for them. And we come out with this, and we did like a press release because we weren't sure if we were going to hit the goal, you know, and we wanted to get as many people as we can. Well, this lady shows up at our church office during the week with a stack of cards, and she walks in, she said, hey, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. But I just think it's really cool you guys are showing up for these teens. I want to be a part of it. And she drops cards and leave. And I went,
that's so awesome.
That's amazing, dude. Because you're talking about a wall going down. Yeah. In essence, we weren't doing anything superhuman. It wasn't a big theological debate. We didn't go 10 layers deep into the veracity of Scripture and try to, you know, wrestle her into submission. Right. It was, we're doing the stuff Jesus did. We're going to be the body of Christ. We want to be a human expression of the gospel in our city. Right. And what did she do? She showed up. Yeah. And she was attracted to it, and she participated, and we had common ground. Right. And she gave $25 gift cards, and I gave $25 gift cards, and you did, and we all did. And we did this thing together, and it was the beginning of, I mean, you look at Jesus shows up at the woman at the well. Yeah. You know, Samaritan woman, they had very different religious views, very different religious beliefs, and they just connect in a human way. And from there, you know, she was open to other conversations. So I think people close off, whether it's family members, whether it's culture as a whole, they close off when they don't see those expressions. I think the best thing we can do, because a lot of us, even well-intentioned, go, I got to argue my mom into the kingdom. You know, I
Right.
got, I got to argue my sister or my brother. And it's like,
you're not going to logically bring anybody to the gospel.
It's
like,
head,
it's not,
it's heart, it's gut.
Yeah.
It's all together.
Yeah.
And so you go, what can I do? The best thing I can do is I can live it. I can live it, be in proximity, be consistent, be a transformed vessel in front of them. Not going, what do I need to show them? Let whatever flows out of a free life spill over onto them, and they'll start to go,
something different.
now I start asking questions. Now I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, our lives shouldn't be creating more bondage for us or other people. It's more freedom.
Right.
Who's not attracted to freedom?
Right.
Right? It's what's, counterintuitive.
It is
right?
Totally counterintuitive.
You're in a relationship. You want to keep her.
Yeah.
So you go, if you ever leave me, if you ever cheat on me, you won't even know what I
yeah.
Or the jealous boyfriend, the jealous girlfriend. Why? Well, because you think, man, if I give them this bad energy, they'll stick around. No, dude, it's freedom that is like, again, Paul says, I don't go sin so that grace will abound. My response to grace is actually more commitment.
Right.
It's actually, I choose to be committed.
Right.
I want to be committed. I'm attracted to freedom. I'm not attracted to bondage.
Right.
So really, and that's the essence of the gospel, is we've been set free. He who the Son has set free is free indeed.
Right. And there's so many things that can look like you're being free, or I'm free to do whatever I want. I'm free to do all these things. I'm free to drink as much as I want. I'm free to get hammered. I'm free to whatever, put a thing on it, right?
Right.
And it's like, but are you though? Like, are you free to put that down?
Right.
Can you walk away from it?
That's good.
Are you free? Because if the answer is no, I can't walk, I need this, you're not free.
Mm-hmm.
You're in more bondage than anybody else who's following the rules of the Bible or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Put that to anything. Like, everybody wants that, or, even myself. I won't say everyone. Myself, like, you want that freedom to say, I get to do this and I can do that and I can skirt the rules here. But are you really free?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can't function without that thing, you're not free.
Yep.
You're not free of that thing. That thing's got you in bondage. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like, it's a weird, like you said, it's counterintuitive the way people look at quote unquote freedom.
Yep.
I'm free to do all the things. I'm free to do whatever I want. I don't want to follow any rules. But are you though? Because you're following some rules somewhere. Something's got you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know. I had that thought
That's
while you were
dead
talking
on.
about that.
That's actually Romans 6.
Okay. Yeah.
It's all in Romans 6. And Romans 6, Paul talks about that. He's like, hey, there was a time, you thought you were free. He's like, you imagined that you were free because you could go out and do anything you wanted. He's like, but did that freedom lead you to anything that you're proud of today? He's like, no.
Right.
You say we're in essence slave to the one we obey.
Right.
So think of it like this, right? My son Hudson, a few years ago, he's on the autism spectrum. We had an issue because he was old enough and big enough he could get out of the house.
Yeah.
So he could unlock the door and leave. And we didn't realize that he could do that until he did it. And so one day my wife said she was gone and I had just Hudson by myself and I was doing something else, and I come down and the door is open. And it was in the winter.
Oof.
Door's open. I feel this draft as soon as I come downstairs. I'm like calling for him, dude. Where is he? Not there. So I run out and I start running around the neighborhood calling for him. I can't find him. So it takes me a while, dude. I finally, I'm 2 blocks away, climb up in, it was like this person 2 blocks away had a play set.
Yeah.
He climbed up in there and he's in the corner and he's like this. Okay, he's shivering. I'm like, grab him, I take him home.
Yeah.
Well, he was free.
Right.
He walked right out the front door, dude.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in this bondage anymore. I'm going to go wherever I want to go. And he went 2 blocks away, got lost, went up in the thing, had no coat. So I bring him back. Technically, he's free, but rebellion isn't freedom. Mm-hmm. Rebellion is fake freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Paul says in Romans 6, sure, go wherever you want to. If you can,
remember there was that time you walked out the front door and you went 2 blocks because you could?
Right.
And then you looked up and was like, where am I at? What am I doing? So in essence, freedom is understanding the protection of the boundary, understanding the warmth and the safety of the house, and choosing to live within that because you understand, the rest of that.
Right.
Yeah, you could walk out and you're still going to be loved, and you might freeze and I'm going to love you frozen.
Right.
So it wasn't, does his dad love him? That
right.
wasn't on the line, because I will love that kid as long as I have breath.
Right.
It was, what are you going to do with this freedom? And what does real freedom even look like?
Right.
To choose to understand consequences, to choose to understand the kind of life you want to live.
Yeah.
And that that's a good example, like you said, like, okay, can I drink alcohol and still be in right standing with God? Well, yeah, it's not like if I drink too much and I die, I'm going to go to heaven. God's like, sorry,
hey man,
dude.
Sorry, you
bro,
blew it.
You're over the legal limit.
15th Budweiser, that was.
Is he going to hand me a breathalyzer? Sorry,
yeah,
bro. Trap
sorry,
door
man.
opens. You go straight down to hell. I sure hope not, because,
yeah.
dude, it's by grace we've been saved through faith. It's not of ourselves. It's a gift of God, not by works, so no one can
right.
boast.
Right.
Right? That'd be a pretty flimsy gospel.
Right.
That
yeah.
couldn't handle that.
Right.
So, yes, sure I could. Should I? Paul says, not everything that's permissible is beneficial.
Right.
So should I do it? I don't think I should, because I don't want to be out of control.
Yeah.
I don't do it because I don't want to be, like you said, yeah, I'm free to do it. But actually, no, I realize that I could be addicted to that.
Right.
Anything that's addictive, I have a very healthy, not like terror or fear of, but I respect that thing.
Right.
Sex is addicting. Drugs are addicting.
Right.
Alcohol is addicting.
Right.
Dude, they're looking at all kinds of addictions. Social media is addicting.
Oh, yeah.
Phones are addicting. A
Yep.
lot of the same stuff that's being shot off, chemicals in your brain, are
Right.
similar to drugs. I mean,
Right.
food
100%.
is
Yep.
addicting. So what? Yes, of course I've got to eat food. But what am I going to do? I'm going to respect it, because I understand food could be bondage, right? All these things. I mean, they're talking about the addiction. I was talking to a guy the other day, a businessman in our church, who was talking about psychologists are looking at it's like the addiction to the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So people like deal makers.
Oh, okay.
They just
yeah,
get
yeah.
this certain like endorphin thing going on. It's
Yeah.
like chemicals shooting off in the brain.
Right.
A high around that.
Right.
So like they get addicted. Like, I need another hit.
Right.
I need another deal.
Right.
And so the purpose of why they're doing it has kind of disintegrated. It's
Right.
more of it's their drug.
Yeah.
So anything that's addictive, I understand. Maybe I have freedom to do it. I have freedom to make deals. I have freedom to have sex. I have freedom to, have a sip of alcohol, or, drink in moderation. I have free to
Yep.
eat food. I'm free. But I understand if I walk out of the house, I get lost, I'm shivering. I'm
Right.
not free anymore.
Right.
Now I'm in bondage.
Right.
And I think each person has to really take that seriously and think that through, pray that through in terms of the decisions they make.
Right. 100%. Yeah, there's definitely people. I mean, I've got friends who, been sober for 18, 19 years now, will never touch another drop of
Right.
alcohol ever again in their life. I can have 2 beers in an evening. I can have a glass of wine, and I know that I don't want to have any more. Like, I know that it's not, that's not for me. It's not, I'm not addicted to it. I don't have any draw to it. I don't have genetically anything like that in my system. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me to have that freedom, like, I have the freedom to have a beer. He doesn't. He knows.
Yeah.
And he knows he's not going to touch the stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's vice versa. It goes back and forth with each individual person. Everybody's got their own thing. And I won't drink around him. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely, I'm going to surrender my freedom
Right.
to you, because even though, we've had discussions, he's like, I don't care. And I'm like, I care though. Like, it matters to me that you have this thing, and out of respect for you as my Christian, my brother in Christ, like, I'm not even going to think about making you falter. You know what I mean? And that's freedom. Like, that's freedom to do that, not say, well, I can do it and you can't. Like, that's not freedom. Like, that's not that's not a healthy expression of freedom. That's not the right expression of freedom, right?
Yeah. Well, the litmus test with yourself too is to be totally honest, to go, if somebody took this away, how would I feel? Right? I was talking to a couple one time, and there were some trust issues in their relationship, and she's like, I see him on his phone all the time, and and she's like, anytime I try to touch his phone, he gets real defensive, I thought, like I understand privacy, and I understand like, you don't want to be in a relationship where it's like, give me your phone.
Yeah.
But if there's a trust issue, it's like, if my wife wants my phone, like if I have nothing to hide, it's like, yeah,
take it,
whatever. If I'm like unwilling, if I'm like this, it's dumb. It's a phone, right?
Right.
But there's something there, like anything you have to pry out of my fingers, whatever that is, there's something there.
Right.
It's a bit of a red flag to go.
Yep.
Like you said, if you're arguing so hard, I need to be able to have this. I need to be, Paul says, don't be mastered by anything.
Right.
Don't let anything master you.
Yeah.
And you start to go, if I need it that bad, then am I really free?
Right.
And if that's your argument, I'm free to do it. You make a great point.
Right.
Dan, you really do with that. It's like, are you or are you not?
Right. Or is that just the thing that you're the slave to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's good. What I was hearing you say too, as you were talking there, was the willingness to take something that may even be innocuous. It's not like it could be easily justified, and digging layers deep underneath it, because that's really where the freedom is.
Right.
It's, you could go from being opiate addicted to being free of opiates and still in bondage.
Yeah.
If you don't find out what, I was talking to a guy a few years ago friend of mine, and he just would kind of trade one addiction for another.
Yep.
He kept sort of just cycling them. So he'd get over this one and go to that one and whatever. And one of the ones that he would have is actually like food. He would kind of balloon up and do these different things. And he's talking to me, and he was like, talking to me about food addiction, and he was talking about carbs and some of these things, like what they make you feel and all this stuff, and comparing it to some of his other addictions. And as he's talking, I'm starting to feel lightweight convicted, dude, because I'm like, I love pretzels and I love, kettle chips and bread and pasta, whatever. And of course I can sit there. I'm like, dude, it's just carbs. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But as he's talking, I started to think like, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to stop eating kettle chips. It's done. I know it sounds so stupid.
Right.
But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to stop eating kettle chips. And it was like, heck no. I don't stop eating kettle chips,
Yeah.
And so I go home that night, and I tell him, I'm like, you know what, man? I'm with you in this journey, dude. I'm feeling it. I'm no more carbs. I'm going to do no kettle chips.
Right.
He's like, okay, cool, yeah. I go home that night, dude. I'm like looking at these kettle chips. I'm like, because I love them, dude.
Yeah.
At night, it's like 10 p.m. I'm laying in bed, dude. I can see them in the pantry. In my mind, I'm like, I'm just going to do one bowl, dude. I'm just going to do it. And honestly, as much as I can justify, dude, that's a bag of chips. And of course, it is just a bag of chips. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to but it was one of those things that I go, why do I really want this?
Right.
And I can say, well, I just like how it tastes. No, it's providing something for me, right?
Right.
And if I'll have the courage and the willingness to kind of dig a little bit deeper, and I go, what's at the root of that? It's going to affect more than just my carb intake.
Right.
It's going to affect my overall freedom.
Right.
I'm like, call the cops.
Yeah, it's Wednesday at noon. It goes off.
I was gonna say, like,
it's right down the
dude,
road.
they heard, dude. We're having a hot conversation, dude. They're gonna shut us down.
Yeah. I'm the same. That's my cereal. Cereal is that for me.
Yeah.
I used to eat a bunch of cereal when I was a kid. I don't really eat it a whole lot anymore. But I win that battle at the grocery store. Like, if I buy a box of cereal, it's done that day. Like, if I buy 2 boxes of cereal, they're both gone that day. Like, I'll destroy it all and then have the worst stomach pain in the world about 6 hours later, Like, so I'll try to have like a treat every now and then. I'm like, just 1 box of Lucky Charms, like, you'll be all right. And like, I don't even want to bring that stuff home. Like,
it's being honest with yourself and going, I mean, dude, you can have a Lucky Charms, right? You can do it. You can, but going, do I want to live a life where I'm giving into compulsions?
Yeah.
You think about actually in Matthew 4, Jesus.
I didn't expect it to come around again.
Dude, I'm fired up. It's got me all excited now. Matthew 4, Jesus fasts for 40 days.
Right.
And, he gets to the end, and it's like Satan tries to tempt him with food, you know? And everyone marvels because they're like, how in the world, after not eating for 40 days, could you not give into the temptation to eat bread? And it's like, well, dude, he hadn't eaten 120 meals. Right. For 40 days, he said no. What's 121?
Yeah.
He in the discipline of going, I'm going to tell myself no when I don't have to.
Right.
You got the money to buy it, don't buy it.
Why? Well, you could buy it. It's not a sin to buy it, but you're going, no, I want to aim higher than that.
Right.
I want to have the discipline to tell myself no when I could tell myself yes.
Right.
Yeah, I could drink this. Yeah, I could eat this. Yeah, I could do this. But I'm going to tell myself no. And I think that habit, like building that discipline.
Yeah.
Not because I'm trying to earn God's favor. I'm already favored by God. I'm already loved by God.
Right.
It's doing it because I understand the result. And that's the life I want to live. I want to live in that level of freedom.
Yeah.
I don't want to be spiritually free, set free by God, and then in bondage to my body.
Right.
Or in bondage to my mind or my emotions. I want to be free in every area.
Right. It's gold.
Dude, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me hang at your house. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
loved it.
You know, we can talk about whatever. We can keep going through the 10 elements. The
general physical skills.
General physical skills. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
We can do that another time. But, man, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming out.
All right. God bless you guys.